So why does RNIB sell products? Well, the first reason is really to bring choice to people, because often something may be in the local shop. You know, it might be on John Lewis, but have you actually got the time to go and find it all around all the different floors and departments that there are in there? Another reason is we're trying to keep the price where we can as low as possible. It's not always easy to do, but on some things we are certainly cheaper than elsewhere. And finally, it's because we're trying to fit little niche requirements for some blind and partially sighted people. And I've got one or two things to show you on that as we go on. So RNIB in its range has over 1,200 different products. Some of them are fairly obvious, like a talking watch. Some of them are very, very specific and niche. So, for example, you may have heard of Perkins brailing machines. We all do the paper for those. We'll also do, recently we've invented a new Dymo adapter. Do you remember the old Dymo guns? I used to love those. I used to have them in Smiths when I was a kid, way back in, the late 70s, early 80s. A whole rack of Dymo label machines. We do the same thing for Braille. So people can actually label maybe their tins in their cupboard if they're a Braille reader. Beyond products, we have 250 magazines and newspapers covering all ages and requirements, different topics as well. And beyond that, we have thousands of books, maps, music, and other specialist publications. I did hear maybe an apocryphal tale, but once I've discovered that T was the biggest map section. And when I went and looked, it said it's because it was the map of Essex, England, Iceland, or wherever. So probably not true, but it made me smile. So as I mentioned, we work nationally, but we're also working with local agencies. And I wanted to just touch that we've been working in Peterborough with Action for Blind People, DIAL, the Eye Clinic for the Peterborough and Stamford Hospitals NHS Foundation Trust, Guide Dogs, who are moving to new offices just around the corner in Broadway, Peterborough Association for the Blind, who have their new offices just up the road behind us as well, near the church, I believe. The Sensory Support Service run by the council, the Macular Society, of course, which is why we're here today, aren't we? Peterborough Talking Newspaper, and I don't know whether you saw, but actually recently the driving force behind that got an award in the Queen's Honours, which is a tremendous tribute to the decades of work that they've put in there. And beyond that, there's the Children's Education Team for the Visually Impaired, and not, of course, forgetting Deaf Blind UK and Sense that we work with as well. So there's a diversity of different teams all working within the Peterborough district that we're working in to support. So I've said we sell products. I've hinted about how many different types. Every day last year, we shipped about 2,000 products. So we have a warehouse. It's in Alton Southgate. It's kind of like a factory unit, really. And every day, more boxes are being sent out to people. Maybe somebody's just bought one watch. Maybe a local authority has actually bought 50 items, and it varies tremendously in between. We served over 41,000 customers in the UK last year, and beyond that, 36 countries worldwide. And sometimes it's quite fascinating when you get to meet these people. You know, recently the Swiss came over to have a meeting with us to tell us about their requirements. And it makes you realise the reach of the products that we do when people are travelling over to see us. Who here has got a liquid level indicator, the little device that goes on the side of the cup? Definitely a few people have got those. It's a little device, if you've not seen one, as you pour in your hot water, as the liquid level rises towards the top of the cup, it beeps and vibrates so you know to stop pouring, so you haven't got an excess of water pouring all over the side. We sell 80 of those every day. Every day of the year, 80 of those go out. And that's not too dissimilar to the amount of people who are registered blind every day. So we like to think of it of actually people making a cup of tea or a cup of coffee safely. And it has two levels, one for the hot water and a little bit higher to add in the milk. But I do know some people that actually use that for the whiskey measure and then the ginger on the top. So,
very little water.
Yes, very little. But products. I meet many people, and the first thing people often come to me and say is, I need a magnifier. And the first thing that I'll do is I will get the magnifying brochure, but I'll put a good light onto it. And people often say, well, I can actually read more of that now. And I think we all do it, don't we? We go to the window, I know I do, the small print on the back of a packet of food, how do you zap it in the oven or whatever? I go to the window to get more light onto it. So good lighting is essential. But we're very aware that lighting has changed and is changing rapidly. One of the brochures that we have available, which you can obtain for free from the RNIB helpline, is Improve the Lighting in Your Home. And what we're trying to capture in there are changes to what's available. So who here has got a low energy light bulb that they were given by their energy company? Who's fed up with the low energy bulbs that they were given? Yes. And it's a pity, because my experience of the ones that I was given, and I've got a drawer full of them at home, you turn them on, you go upstairs, you do everything that you were going to do, you come back downstairs, and about half an hour later they're up to brightness. But it's not true of all of them, and most people I meet are frustrated because they think that once they've had one bad experience, that the rest are all the same. But actually the latest low energy light bulbs are very bright and very instantly up to speed. But the difficulty is, and I've done this myself, I've been into Tesco's and I've looked at their big array of light bulbs. I've been into the B&Q warehouse and I've looked at their array as well. It's very difficult to tell, looking at the display there, which ones are the ones that are quick to be up to their luminance. So to assist with that, we actually sell a couple of bulbs that we know are very bright from the moment that you turn them on. And I've actually, taken them home myself to test them out. It's a very, very white light, and a colleague of mine, her son is visually impaired, and he said, Mum, for all the things that you've bought me, all the gadgets you've spent hundreds and thousands of pounds on, with this I can actually see the corners of my bedroom. So it just shows the difference a good, strong light will make, and it's a low energy bulb. So not all low energy bulbs are frustrating as the ones you may necessarily have been given. So what I'm saying to people is give them another chance, have a look, maybe if you just buy one and see whether it works or not for you. But you can talk to John Lewis and whoever else, because I'm sure they'll have guidance too. The other change in lighting is towards LED lights, and we're seeing a lot of different lights come to market, and it's rapidly changing. What I have in my hand here is, it's like a white block, which about the size of one of the old big chocolate bars, and it folds in a Z shape. And in the base of it, it's got the equivalent of a mobile phone battery. So you plug it in to charge it up. But in the top, it has an array of LED lights. So you can actually, if you can, I'm holding it so that it's actually casting light down onto my notes to keep me on the straight and narrow. Now, where would this be useful? Well, recently I was away with work and I was in a restaurant, and they turned the lights down low, presumably for all of the couples that were around and not for the businessman who was sat there on his own, which meant I could no longer read my paper and I could barely see my dinner because it was such Stygian gloom. And I thought to myself, I wish I'd got the lamp that's back in my hotel room. And this weighs really very little at all. It's about the weight of a mobile phone, I would say. But on a full charge, it's going to give you about 8 or 9 hours lighting. So you could use it, if you're out, you can use it as a task light in a restaurant. If you're trying to cast more light, some people I meet go to card playing clubs, like bridge clubs and the like. And the biggest difficulty they have is actually getting light so they can see their cards without revealing to everybody else that they've got everything that they shouldn't have, and losing all their money by the end of it. So low energy bulbs, there are many better ones out there, so please do give them a second thought and another try, but also be aware of what's coming through from LED, and we're trying to explain what's happening with our brochure that's available for free. I did mention that we try to keep prices down on many things, and I checked just this morning before I came here. We do a floor standing lamp made by the Daylight Company, and I thought I'd give you an equivalence. We sell it for just under £76. There is a very well-known hobby store in Peterborough, and they're selling exactly the same lamp for £140. So, when you're looking for lighting, it is worth being, checking around to make sure that you're actually getting the best light. It may be somebody's doing it even better, which if they are, that's superb. But don't always rush to sort of assume that the first priced is going to be the best everywhere. I mean, I think that's a remarkable difference, nearly double in price between 76 and 140. And it's similar on the tabletop version. We're £63, they're £120. That's a lot of money you could actually buy hobby materials with if that's what you wanted to do. I said people often come up and talk to me about magnifiers, and I check them first with the lighting, but obviously many people do want magnifiers. And what we like to make sure is people have actually been to the low vision clinic to actually get an individual assessment, because they will supply them with a magnifier for free if it's appropriate. We do sell some, and the reason we sell some is because people were not always waiting to get an assessment, and they, like my mum does, they'll actually go and buy them in somewhere like the Works or WH Smith's or somewhere else. And we wanted to make sure people were actually getting good advice and a good selection. So to complement that, we have a brochure called Choosing Your Magnifier. Now, this is not about selling you a product. This is about information to help you understand what you're looking for. And contained within there is like an eye test chart called Blue Skies and Golden Sands. And it helps you determine what you can actually read compared to normal print. And it'll actually help you steer, whether you're getting on all right. The magnifiers, some of them are just handheld with just the lens, and some of them have a light in. Now, I don't know about you, but I've got a little boy, and what he likes to do is borrow my torches. And once he's finished whatever he wanted to go and peer at with the torch, he leaves it on the side, and when I come back to it, the battery's flat. So then I go chasing the little boy around the house, grimacing at him. It's so easy to do that, actually, with your magnifier. You've been so busy trying to read the letter that's arrived, you can put it down on the side. Some people also will struggle with the switches. So we have an example of one here that it's just my hand holding it that makes it illuminate. And when I release it, it goes off again. So you hold it, you can read what you're doing. When you put it down on the side, the actual illumination will automatically switch off, just to prolong the battery life. Very simple, but actually very useful, because who has a drawer full of spare batteries for things? Well, I do, because I've got little children. But it can save you a lot of time and a lot of frustration, because the next time you go to read something, you don't want to go off and look for the batteries. You want to read the thing that's in front of you then and there. Within the document, we're trying to help people understand the terminology, because people are talking things like diopters and other stuff like this, and we're trying to make it clear what that actually means and also what the strength of a magnifier means. I often meet people who say, I want a magnifier that's A4 in size, so I can put it over the document. It doesn't really work like that. The stronger the magnifier, the smaller the lens is going to be. And I have worked with some people who have remarkably small low vision aids, but they're like 20 and more times powerful in their magnification. Which leads me on into my next point, actually. A friend of mine was cooking at home, and he was making himself a ham and pineapple pizza. And he'd got the pizza base all sorted out, and he'd got the ham on it, and he got his low vision aid, and he went through the tins in the cupboard, read the label painstakingly, and he read the P, the I, the N. I thought, great, that's the pineapple. Opened it up, poured it on. Unfortunately, it wasn't pineapple, it was pink salmon. So I don't know whether there's a market for ham and pink salmon pizza, but it was a slight turn in his plan for the evening's meals. So in line with that thought, what I have 3 cans. Please don't tell my wife I've robbed these out of the cupboard. And I have labelled them, wrapped them round with white paper and a question mark on each one. So nobody is any the wiser as to what's in each. And in fact, I don't know what's in each now myself. You can imagine reaching into your cupboard. Excuse me, I'm struggling with hay fever at the moment. Who here is aware of the pen friend, the labelling device? Sorry, I had to dart down and get some water. Sorry, can I just ask that question again? Who here is aware of the pen friend, the labelling device? A few hands. I've been with RNIB over 20 years, let's put it that way. And I think this is actually the best product I've ever come across in anything I've seen worldwide. What I have in my hand, thank you, is about the size and shape of a microphone. It's about 6 inches long, it's black, and it's got some tactile buttons down the front of it. What I've placed onto each tin is a little sticky label. Now, one of the tins is dog food, one of the tins is baked beans, and another one is peach halves, I think. Now, we don't want the dog to get a surprise, do we? And we don't want to get the dog surprise either. What I did is I prepared earlier in the best Blue Peter style, and I've put a little label on the end of each tin in the middle of the round surface, and if I touch the pen to it,
baked beans.
Right, that's ours. Dog's not getting those. And I'm moving on to the next tin and just touching the label.
Dog food.
Right, definitely the dog food, unless I'm in trouble at home for pinching the tins.
Pineapple chunks.
So what I was able to do there was just record a short message on each of these tins to say what it is. You can use this to label up just about anything in the home. We have people whose hobbies are gardening, so they label up seed packets. The gentleman I know is a radio ham and he records who he's made contact with. There's a lady I know, actually, she's got 3 on her home telephone. And the first button, first label, is the long number off of her debit card. So when she's ringing up and somebody says, can you tell us the number off your debit card? She just plays the recording off the first label. Second label is the expiry date, and the third label is the security number off the back of the card. So it's always there, it's always to hand. Other people have used it in their phone and address books, and I do know of people who go out and they have 2 of the labels on their belt. And so if they come to something like this and there's a bit of information or a phone number they want to grab, they just ping the label on their belt and away they go to record it. The pen has the capacity to record up to 250 hours. So not only could I say dog food, I could actually say dog food, bought on April 2013, make sure the dog doesn't have more than half a tin at a time or it'll get fat. Or probably my wife will put that on the food for me. With food in the freezer, you can actually not just say that it's a Marks and Spencer's finest lasagna, but you can actually turn around and say, cook it for so long, don't forget the garlic bread, before you start, open the red wine. We're returning to the drink again, aren't we? Very good, the red wine. But it's simple to use. There are 4 tactile buttons, and I'm quite happy to show this to people afterwards downstairs on the stand. The top one is on, there's a double one which is the volume control, and the bottom one is for recording. So would somebody like to shout out any phrase they wish that I could just record? Bar black sheep. So I've got a label on my finger about the size of a large stamp, holding down the button. I touch the label and I say bar black sheep. And I release the button. All I do is bring the pen back to the label.
I touch the label and I say bar black sheep.
So it's that simple to do. But you can reuse the labels. Would somebody like to shout out something different? Same label. Okay. Humpty Dumpty said.
Humpty Dumpty said.
So all I did, exactly the same label, I just put a new recording onto it. But remember, it doesn't have to be a short recording. It can be as long as you need it to be. So you can actually put in all of your details. It could be your insurance documents at home. It could be your CD collection. Whatever your hobby or your interest is or was, you can re-energizing it, use the pen friend. I think it's the best thing that I've seen. The pen is £60 with labels in the pack, but the labels are cheap to buy. You get around 400 labels for around £13, I think it is, which works out about 3p per label. But we've got a hints and tips fact sheet on our website for people on how to use it and different ideas that people have shared back with us. So we're always trying to respond and reflect back out. What was a good idea for one person could be a good idea for somebody else. I'll show you one little thing you have to be careful of. You know, baked beans often come as a multi-pack. So I'll make this label baked beans. Baked beans.
Baked beans.
I'm going to then rip this label up into small pieces. So you imagine I've got 4 different tins, and one piece is going on each tin. So I'm going to touch the pen to the first label,
baked beans,
second label,
baked beans,
third label.
baked beans,
But you have to be careful, because if I was to change one of the labels, dog food, first label is,
dog food,
second label is.
dog food,
So you do have to be careful, because you could get a bit of a shock. But I have to say, I've met people from all over, and they've been so excited with their pen friend. And generally, people are wearing it on the lanyard round their neck wherever they go. They won't be parted from it. What else do we do? Mobile phones. I meet so many people asking about mobile phones. Some people because they've been pushed to it by family members saying, you've got to have a phone, Dad, and Dad doesn't want a phone, but he's forced to do it so. Other people who are champing at the bit to have a phone, and some people who want the latest, snazziest phone to upgrade to. We have a number of phones in our range, but there are 2 that have been very popular. The first one I'm holding up, it's white, the buttons are black for contrast, and it has 4 speed dial buttons on it, and it's slightly larger than the average handset. And the thing about this is it is just a phone. There's no internet, there's no texting, there's no camera, there's nothing else. It is just a phone. And this phone outsells all the other phones put together, because people just want the phone. And with the speed dials, 4 numbers, family, taxi, next door neighbour, whoever you need, you've actually covered most of your bases fairly quickly there. So it's quite nice to have something very simple, nice big buttons on it, which are tactile to feel as well. It's £83, I think. But what people were asking for was a talking phone. You can get things like the iPhone will have speech on it, but it takes a while to get to learn it. It took me ages to learn my phone. I suddenly realised I was the age I was. I wasn't whizzy with the technology.
Welcome to the mobile phone Alto. This is a talking phone. You can repeat any sentence by pressing the top side key. Adjust the volume using the bottom side keys.
So the quality of the speech on that, I think, is very good. It has 2 voices in it, a male voice and a female voice, according to what you prefer. If you've got your phone book and you had me entered in it, it would say James. And if you write or receive or send text messages, it will actually read them to you as well. It doesn't go much beyond that, because a lot of people just want those basic things. It has functions like calendar and other things like that in it as well. But it doesn't have internet, it doesn't have camera. It's your basic phone for your phone calls and for your text messages. Again, it's on the display downstairs. If you haven't seen it, then I'll be down there afterwards so you can have a play. Things like this generally come along extremely expensive. And the last one that we had was actually £300. And we were pleased to be able to bring this one into our range for £117. So nearly a third of the previous price. It's making it, again, bringing down the price of things. I was talking about handheld magnifiers before. You're probably aware there are also optical electronic magnifiers. Did you see any downstairs if you actually went to the exhibition? Some of the stands actually had ones where there's a screen built in, a bit like a sat-nav in a car, but it actually brings up the text on the display and changes the colour as well. The last thing I wanted to mention, though, was timekeeping. It's something we take for granted, and I can see the difficulty the other speakers were having with seeing the clock, because it's neatly between the pillars. Whilst I was sat here, 1 or 2 times I heard talking watches telling the time. And sometimes that can be useful, because if you think, I wish he'd hurry up, you can point out to the speaker that the time is actually moving on, and can we, got cars waiting, want to get home, and things like this. But it's a thing that we take for granted. Many of the people I've met countrywide during the course of the year have met me, and they said, the clock's changed in March, it's now April, could you set my watch for me? And that's frustrating, to be an hour out and to make that adjustment all the time. Many people I've met have said, oh, don't worry, it'll be all right again in a couple of months, leave it as it is. But why should you have to experience that? So a couple of the clocks and watches we've got.
The time is 3:56 p.m.
So this clock is radio controlled,
The time is 3:56 p.m.
Which tells me I've got 4 minutes left. It sets itself. You put the batteries in, you put it on the side, and it will set itself within about half an hour generally. When the summertime starts and stops, in the middle of the night, it will change whilst you're asleep. That was great to get that into a clock, but then people said, yes, but it's the watches that are fiddly. So we've now got the same technology in a watch. Now this is the same speech chip, but this is the difference between a speaker that's probably 4 centimetres in diameter and one that's a half a centimetre in diameter.
The time is 3:57 p.m.
So I've got 3 minutes left to finish off. So those two, amongst others in our range, have the radio control feature to always be spot on accurate. But people have said to me they wanted something more discreet. They don't always want to announce to everybody else what the time is. So just added to our range in the last month is something called the Meteor. It's about the size of a pebble, a bit shell-like, and it has 3 tactile buttons in it. And what these do is vibrate to tell you the time. So you could have this in your pocket, and you could just touch the first button and it will vibrate 3 times to tell you it's 3 hours. And the second button will buzz to tell you how many tens of minutes, and the last button will buzz to tell you how many single minutes. Now, we first looked at this watch about 3 years ago, and it was about £170. And we said we liked it, but not at that price. And they've come back to us late last year. We've actually been able to negotiate it down to £60, which I still think is a lot of money, because most of our watches start off on the basis of £20 and upwards. However, for people who have dual sensory loss, hearing and visual impairment, this actually offers a niche product, or for people who want in a professional way, not to broadcast to everybody, I'm just checking what the time is now. Unless you're thinking, is he going to finish? Well, we're continually sourcing products like this. People are feeding back to us all the time. We do welcome your comments through the helpline. If you want to keep informed about what's new, we actually send out something called New Product Guide. And my colleagues on the stand downstairs were taking people's details to subscribe them for free to New Product Guide in their preferred medium. So you'll actually find out, as it's breaking news, the newest products that we've launched, because we launch once a month, and you'll always keep on top of the latest thing, rather than wait for the whole new catalogue in 12 months' time. And that way you can find out that the latest gadget is either for you or not, and you can make your own choice. But thank you for your time.